Welcome to the Little Johnny Chronicles number 21, the Darkness series, episode 11, Thieves. Obviously, today we're going to be talking about thieves. Let's start with this. If you got something better to do, if you got bigger fish to fry, if you have bigger goals to attain and you're wasting your time, go get after it. Don't be hanging out here wasting time. But if you got some time to spare, let's talk some shit. All right. Let's talk about where the thieves fit in on my tiering system. So, again, I'll use some graphics, but I'm lazy as fuck. So here's the best I can do for now. I got 3 tiers of my darkness tiering system. Starting at the bottom is tier 3. Of course, in the middle is tier 2, and at the top is tier 1. Really malevolent fucks. Here's where most of us reside, right? We're evildoers, like they say. We're sinners, if you want to put it in religious context. But this is where we all start. This is the genesis of where most of our malevolent behavior starts. We could be wanting to be a good person, but we all end up here, and we, of course, all escalate to tier 2 somehow, some way, whether we like it or not. Again, we're imperfect human beings. And the goal of this exercise is to identify those imperfections so that we can do better. Why do we want to do better? We want to do better for ourselves so our lives can improve, so they can be less miserable, so we can reduce some of that self-induced suffering, but also so that we can take care of the people to our left and our right, to take care of our brother and sister, put ourselves in a good situation to succeed. So at a minimum, we could not be an irritant to our brother and sister. But on the flip side of the coin, as a positive, we can help others. We can help our brother and sister when they're in struggle. We can help our family members do better when they're going through their crisis, and vice versa. If they're trying their best to be a good person and you're in trouble, your tribe can definitely come to your help, your rescue. I want you to take a second before we start this exercise and start talking shit, just to kind of reflect on who you are, what you've stolen in your life. Is your character built that way, or have you built your character that way? I think stealing is a learned behavior, sometimes out of necessity, but most of the time it's something else. It's probably more related to targets of opportunity, other dark parts or elements of our souls, like the 7 deadly sins, and we'll get into that. But take a second. Think about any time you've stolen something in your life, or if you're stealing something right now, whether it's time from your employer, whether it's money out of the cash register, whether it's the nice shiny objects that you think nobody will notice are missing, or you're you're hardcore and you're breaking into places and robbing and burglarizing, holding, you got bank robbers and all kinds of different levels of crime related to theft. Who are you? Are you the behind the scenes guy who is breaking into people's accounts, online accounts, identity thieves? So you can see there's a really broad spectrum of where we can all fall into these things. It includes me. We'll talk about it. So let's expand on the tiering system a little bit before we get into the thieves portion, just so we can see where this guy snaps in exactly. In my opinion, the thief, again, starts to break another boundary or go above and beyond when it comes to malevolency, because now you have very true victims. There's no way around it when you steal something from somebody, that they are victimized, they are harmed in a very real way. Whether it's violent or not, maybe depending on your perspective, but mostly it's almost impossible to steal from somebody without inducing some sort of violent behavior or without attributing some level of violence to the crime committed. So let's talk about tier 3, kind of the gentle malevolency or aspect of our personality. All the different players, not all the different players, but briefly discuss the players there. We'll bump it up to tier 2 to give it the real context, the meat and potatoes. We'll discuss tier 1 briefly to tell you how it could be worse, to give it some compare and contrast, so we're not painting thieves as an absolute worst of the worst, because some people think, thieves should be executed, which is like, it probably not. That's an extreme type of thought, but we need to put them in the right context. We put them at the right level of malevolency. Again, that's what the whole point of the tiering system is for. On the other side, I have here tier 3 criminal. Their level of suffering that they produce is minuscule. Right here, they get one skull across some bones, compared to tier 2, which gets 3, compared to tier 1, which gets, it's innumerable. I didn't have enough room. Should put more crossbones. But, they create a huge level of suffering. Let's begin. Tier 3, those are the seeds of malevolence. That's where the theft begins a mindset, or the thief begins a mindset. Although there are no thieves in tier 3, we got to understand that the behaviors in tier 3 are what lead to all this stuff. One example are the 7 deadly sins. We lust over things, right? Somebody has a nice shiny object. It could literally be flesh, right? Their girlfriend or their boyfriend or their man or woman. Or you already have the man or woman and you want more. Gluttony, you don't have enough of a thing. And we can keep going, right? Because you still have greed, which is probably the primary factor there. Sloth, which is another characteristic of the thief, right? Well, why am I going to work for it if I could just steal it? I'm too lazy to go earn it. Wrath, envy, pride, etc. And we could speak about every single one of those deadly sins, and we could tie it directly into thievery. If you think about it for a minute on your own, I'm sure you could come up with a million ways that those things correlate. All right, let's talk about the opportunist. So again, theft is sometimes just a target of opportunity. Before, I forget what year it was, 2022, 2021, maybe even 2000, you wouldn't see, at least to the degree they are now, things locked up behind glass cabinets in the store. And that happened because people started walking out of the store with a bunch of merchandise in their hands, carrying as much as they could. Some people would even show up with backpacks, they still do, and just start stealing things off the shelf. Why? Because they changed the law. They changed the law saying that if you didn't steal anything over $950 or something like that, there was some sort of misdemeanor. So people started taking advantage of it. They took advantage of the opportunity that the government, I'm speaking about California, that the government opened up by changing the law in that fashion. And because of that, store employees, staff, even the security guards were told, hey, just let the people walk out. It's not worth the effort, right? We got insurance, blah, 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 which of course is a misnomer because the insurance just passes on the cost by increasing insurance rates. And you have all these people now going into the store and just stealing things literally wholesale. They were stealing things wholesale. And that's the opportunist. I mean, but that's a tier 3 entity, right? Because normally the opportunist isn't trying to risk anything. Right? They're not going to put any skin in the game. For example, I always use the example of the DUI person. They never think they're going to get caught, right? Because who's checking your blood alcohol content before you get into your car? Nobody. You just get in, you think you're going to get away with it, and the next thing you know, you're in trouble because you were driving erratically and got pulled over. Now you're in jail. Or the worst happens, you hurt somebody or kill somebody on the road. But the guy or gal who takes advantage of a lax law to steal stuff, it's the opportunist, right? There's no risk. I'm going to get a ticket, I'm going to get a fine, I'm going to get probation. There's no real consequence for my behavior, so why would I not steal? Well, there are a bunch of reasons why you shouldn't, and you already know what those are, but we'll talk about that later. Next is the addict. The addict on my tiering system is the first hard gateway. That's where dependency drives theft, where you need something so bad, which is your fix, so you can avoid getting sick, or simply because you're literally seeking that next high, that next moment that feels so good, because the drugs, they do these good things, well, seemingly good things to your brain. The problem is that the high is temporary. It doesn't last forever. Matter of fact, in most instances, the high is so short-lived that you need to go spend more money to get high within the next couple hours, the next 8 hours. Sometimes I think crack is like 10 minutes. I don't know how long meth lasts, but I assume it's not long. And before you know it, you're looking for your next high. And who can sustain that financially? And maybe you start off with a good job and a good house in suburbia. And maybe you got hooked on opioids and it's not your fault. The doctor or the system that you're operating in somehow got you hooked on drugs. And now you don't have access to those pills and you have to get it elsewhere. And slowly but surely your employment starts to suffer. And you start to slack off at work, and now you don't have a job, and now you're depleting your savings and selling valuables to achieve your fix. Before you know it, you can't pay the mortgage, you're out of a house, and you're on the street. And we see it playing out. The reason that story is so easy to articulate is not because I made it up. It's because you see it. It's been seen over and over again, and it manifests itself in all these open drug markets, is what they call them. Really, those are signs of neglect of the citizens of this country, of our society. I don't think it's that we don't care, but the people who are responsible for creating it do not take responsibility for fixing it. And I'm speaking specifically about the pharmaceutical industry, drug dealers, and I'm not talking about the street hustler. I'm talking about the cartels, right? Those folks who are way up here in the on the tiering system because of their level of damage that they do to people in mass. But the addict, he's down here, right? The addict tends to just hurt themselves until they can no longer afford their product, and they have to resort to stealing in order to fund their habit, and that manifests itself in burglary, or they become the opportunist. So that car's unlocked, there's an iPhone on the dash, I'm going to take it. Don't leave your stuff unsecured. But just because somebody leaves something unlocked does not give you license to steal it. It's still, you still have that human aspect of yourself that deserves respect, self-respect, your dignity, your character. Do you want to be known as a thief? Do you want to be known as an addict? Again, life is hard. I'm not trying to judge you, but I'm asking you to ask yourself those questions. And is that enough to influence you to overcome your addiction? I don't know. I assume it's really hard because people are choosing to live with homelessness. Not just that, but live with new types of diseases because of their addiction. I was watching a documentary. Somebody was taking trank, and it literally cuts off the circulation to the surface of your skin, and your flesh literally starts to rot off your bones, sometimes down to the bone. It takes a special type of addiction, and I'm sorry you're in that condition. I hope you get some help. There are a bunch of different ways to get better. I'm not trying to judge you, but that is something extreme. And so we can see already how we're sacrificing just at the addiction level, the addict, the low level tier 3 non-criminal, and how it affects our lives when we start to participate in malevolent behavior. And of course, way at the bottom, we have the trolls. Once we start eroding who we are as people and operating in cruelty, saying mean stuff, just for the sake of being mean, I don't mind a person who takes the opportunity to be honest. I kind of appreciate those folks, even if they piss me off sometimes. Like, hey, Juan, did you think about this? You're messing this up and blah, blah, blah. If it's a friend, I guess I could take it. It's like you're concerned for me. You're pointing out the obvious that I'm being ignorant to. There's really nothing wrong there, I don't think. But the troll, however, takes an opportunity to take your weaknesses or simply take your misdeeds or your accidental misdeeds. I tripped. I misspoke. And they immediately want to jump on it and pounce and slam dunk on you and call you stupid or a moron or whatever the troll does, right? You're trying to make an articulate argument, and they take the straw man approach and they deconstruct your argument in the dumbest way possible. And somehow you're on the hook to defend yourself against stupidity because there's more of them. than there are of you. And we can see it play out all the time on social media. Especially, I mean, pick a platform now. There's no especially this or that. They're all ugly. Most of the comment sections, most of social media has turned into internet pollution. It's just trash. It's the clickbait. It's the irrational headlines that, or the outrage clickbait, the outrage headlines. It's our politicians. It's everybody who's looking for attention, right? It's the attention economy, and the more attention they can get, the more money they can make. And who gives a damn about the consequences to society at large? And it helps to pit us against each other because it makes more money. And those are the trolls. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Did they break any laws? No, they're operating well within the boundaries of the law, within the guardrails. But does it make it right? Does it make it ethical? Does it make it moral? And I'm not a priest or a preacher, or nor am I God. However, I do happen to believe that those things are important for a healthy society. And a healthy society or an unhealthy society, depending on which one you live in, has to do with me and you, whether you like it or not. And our society right now is very unhealthy. We haven't even gotten to talk about the thieves yet. And we've been able to outline how detrimental our negative behavior is to the individual and society at large. We're not even breaking crimes yet. So very much so, ethics and morals and our just desire to operate in a world with integrity that happens to be bound by some rules, not some reasonable rules of law, or just willing participation, are beneficial to ourselves and to the whole. It's not overly complicated, but we do have to sit and think about it a little bit and guide our behavior. We have to guide our ship. All right. So we talked about the 7 deadly sins, the opportunist, the addict, and the trolls. Let's move on. Let's move up to tier 2. Let's get to what we're talking about. A tier 2 malevolent entity. At the beginning, when we started talking about these folks, we're talking about community criminals, minor crimes, right? Real crime, though, hard crime, call the cops, get in trouble, get a ticket, get arrested. Immoral crimes, these are a little bit more hardcore. In the example, there's the pimp and the prostitute. We spoke about vandals. Of course, there's just people damaging property that isn't there, doesn't belong to them, whether it be graffiti or literally breaking stuff because they think it's inconsequential. It is very consequential, whether we like it or not. We could talk about the broken windows theory. Now, there's a couple of dimensions to that, because you could take a good thing too far. So open windows theory says that if a community appears to be in disrepair, even if it's just a broken window, the people in the community and even passerbys will believe that maybe nobody in that community cares about what's going on there. And so what starts to happen, it attracts, or it prompts bad behavior in the form of, well, maybe if they don't care about that broken window, maybe I can go into it. Maybe if there's a broken window over there, I can put another broken window over here, right? Vandals. There was a test done, and I forget, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy. And what they did is they parked a car with the hood open in a seedy part of town, and they parked the car in an affluent part of town. Same car, same model, same condition with the hood up. That was it. They left it there. And within hours, I think, in the seedy part of town, the car became vandalized. People started to break into it. It got stripped apart. Eventually, the car was just a shell of it. So it didn't take, I don't even think, a week for that thing to fall apart. And I think also the car might have had a broken window. Again, broken windows theory. Let me leave out the important stuff. Sorry about that. But anyway, they left the car, though, in the same condition in a affluent part of town. It took way longer. I think it was a week before anybody did anything to the car. And so it was kind of a demonstration of how a community, if it appears not to care about its environment, everything is up for grabs. It encourages even malevolent behavior. And I know I messed up the analogy, the the car story, but you can look it up. That's why I wanted to give you the name of the guys who did that experiment, so you can look it up for yourself, because there very much is a component to our behavior that influences our environment and vice versa, right? We're products of our environment. And so, of course, that encourages thieves, right? So that's exactly what we're talking about. The criminals with direct victims, theft at the individual level. So we're going to start with thieves at the individual level, and then we'll give an example of the broader context, because there are criminal organizations that all they do is steal stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So burglars, that's the first one on the list. That's probably an insidious one. Professionals, semi-professionals, amateurs, and prowlers. So the professional burglars probably not going to get caught frequently. They do their homework. This person, if they apply their expertise to something legitimate, like private investigation, where surveillance is also part of the traits or the skill set, they could make money in a legitimate fashion and not risk going to jail. Semi-pros, like those are the people that burglarize our homes. They know we're there. They know we're not. They pay attention as to whether or not the lights are on or the lights are off, or if the neighbors are home, we have a dog, etc. Related to the professional, but maybe not on the level. Amateurs. All right, so let's tie tier 3 to tier 2. So we have the addict at tier 3, lowest level, non-criminal, and we have the thief on tier 2. Definitely a criminal, definitely a lawbreaker. But now at tier 3, non-criminal, you have an addiction to feed, and now you become an amateur burglar. It's a crime of opportunity, or you're literally fiending so bad that you break into somebody's house without any planning, or maybe you saw an open window and you decided to go through it so you could take something of value, so you could sell it on the street and feed your addiction. So these things are very much related. Our malevolent behavior doesn't stay stagnant. It grows. It's like a cancer. And we've all heard that internet meme now. I assume it says that every person in them has 2 dogs or 2 wolves. One is good and one is evil. And the question is, well, which one wins? And the answer is the one you feed. So if you tend to behave more malevolent, you can understand what your prospects are for your future, because that's what grows. Of course, if you try to operate in a positive light, you try to get along with your neighbors, you try to be a good actor, you can understand that those aspects of your life will grow, even if you're in a bad environment. That's my belief, of course. I mean, it's hard out there. Life is hard. But, it depends. What are you doing? How are you behaving? Next one is on the list is muggers. Violent opportunists. Man, muggers, they can traumatize people and frequently do. You got to think about the mugger. He's not going to pick the strongest guy or the strongest gal. He's not going to pick the guy who looks like he can protect himself or might be carrying a piece himself. He's not going to pick the gal who looks like she's a Second Amendment activist and might have a piece in her purse. They're going to pick the vulnerable. They're going to pick the weak. They're going to pick the meek. I have no respect for the mugger. I guess if I ended up, with their gun in my face, I would at least pretend that I respected them. That, here, take my money. But it takes a special kind of evil to think that stealing somebody's money by force, especially somebody weaker than you, is a strength of some sort. It's not a power move. It's a coward move. And I just have no respect. I'll never understand the mugger. I don't think there's ever any good reason to do it that way. Somebody didn't teach you right. You need a hug. I have no clue what you need. But don't be a mugger. That's insane. Truly a tier 2 criminal, and truly the type of person that doesn't need to be on the street. And I hate to be a person to advocate for the restriction of people's freedom, but sometimes people need a lesson. Of course, those lessons of incarceration should come with some type of rehabilitation incentive or structure or something. But we do it shitty in this country, so I mean I won't even get into that. Identity thieves. Identity thieves. I don't think they're more cowardly than the mugger, but they're fucking cowards nonetheless. Maybe they are more cowardly than the mugger. At least the mugger has enough gumption to confront a person, because that's hard to do, even in general, right? Confronting, going to a job interview, that's a little bit of confrontation. Um, Going to the counter at McDonald's because they give you 5 nuggets, not 6. That takes a little level of confrontation, and a lot of people have problems with that. So the mugger maybe has some, maybe a half ounce, maybe not even that, a gram of courage, where the thief is devoid of any courage. They have no confrontation. They're stealing from little old ladies' pocketbooks en masse. It's not like they just pick one person or two people. They're probably stealing identities en masse, and they steal it for financial fraud. There's medical fraud. There's all kinds of reasons. I can't even start to enumerate it. As a matter of fact, I can't settle on anyone in my mind, because these identity thieves, there's just no end to the number of crimes that they commit under the guise that they're somebody else. Why would you want to be somebody else? Like, you yourself aren't good enough. It's just a means to an end. I need some money, or this is my career. That's the career path you chose, pretending to be somebody you're not. Damn, there's something thoroughly broken inside of you if you're an identity thief of that sort. I'll tell you a story. So I know somebody near and dear to me, and they fell for the Prince Hakeem email impersonator, the phishing email attack. And before they know it, they were in love, and they talked them into selling their home. They talked them into selling them all the proceeds from the sale of that house. They talked them into sending them, the cash benefit, the Social Security that they worked hard all their life for, that's supposed to be used to pay for mortgage and rent. Under the guise that the person would be back, and they were going to show up and rescue them, and they're going to buy them a house, and we're going to get married. And I guess, we shouldn't be that gullible. It's just stating the obvious. But the fact remains that people are lonely, especially our elder folks. And the idea that somebody's going to come and spend the rest of eternity with them is very enticing. And so people will use that idea that I'm going to marry you and take care of you for eternity, the rest of your life, because I know you're lonely. It's easy to fall for. And it's disgusting that people would use that ruse, that lure, to trick people into giving up their money. Those are our grandparents. Those are the people that helped to raise us, at least just in general. And why would we think that that's permissible? And the sad part is that there's basically almost nothing that authorities can do once the crime has been committed. Why? Because it's all voluntary. But it's a hustle. It's a con job. And, to think that there aren't better protections for our vulnerable senior citizens, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand how vulnerable our old people are. I don't know what the age is for that. Is it 60, 65, 70? I think it's, individual dependent. But in general, I think we come up with a number and say, hey, man, these people are off limits. We're going to fuck you up if you take advantage of these folks. Because in my mind, people who have begun the downward spiral in life, the downward slide, we're all going to get there. We're all going to get old. Our minds are not going to be as sharp. We're not going to be hip to the new tricks of the trade of the criminal craft. And some of us are just going to fall for it. I don't think there's a way around it. So in that context, we're very much like a child, where you say no to strangers, stranger danger, a very simple rule, right? Because the criminals are complicated. We don't need to complicate it for the kids. If you don't know the person, do not fucking trust them. And if I didn't tell you I'm coming to pick you up from school, then don't get in the car with nobody else. Go home. Very, very simple rules. The problem with this is, as you age, I guess even the simple rules seem complicated when you're talking in the context of loneliness and the extreme, isolation that some of our senior citizens find themselves in because brothers and sisters pass away. Of course, their parents have probably passed away. The children have their own lives, and maybe don't come visit, or maybe don't give a fuck. I know somebody who put their mama on the street. They were living with them, and the dude, he was like, I guess I don't want you here with me no more. Put his mama on the street. That shit was insane to me. I can't believe that I know a person like that, and that I had to endure that story. It's fucking tragic. Why would he do that to your mama to begin with? And two, who does she have now? There's nobody to take her in. It was, I hate that story. But those are the identity thieves. They're all kind of related to that catastrophe because the reason that his mom didn't have a place to stay is because she got hustled too. Fucking crazy. And then you have like less insidious thieves like pickpockets. Those are the breach of trust thieves. Like you turn your back and somebody takes something out of your purse, or they somehow know how to grab your wallet without you noticing. Fucking cowards. Moving on. So let's put some context. Do some compare and contrast. So that's a tier 2 type of thief. You could steal all kinds of shit. And of course, depending on what and how much you steal of it, you might end up higher on the scale of darkness. A regular criminal like that, burglars, muggers, I think they just have, maybe a poor upbringing or a flawed perspective of life. I think those people could be rehabilitated. I think they should choose to be rehabilitated. They only stand to benefit from their skill set if they legitimize it. I kind of, almost feel for these people. It's like, dude, just choose to do it in a legal fashion, and you can probably make even more money. Why? Because now you're not going to go to jail. Now you can take all your money and put in a savings account. You can start to invest it. You can make even more money if you legitimize yourself. But anyway, we're going to see. Let's look at some tier 1 personalities, right? These are the real thieves, the true architects of suffering. And I'll just be honest, that line right there, those aren't my words. I was using some chat GPT and it threw that at me, and I was like, yeah, that sounds about accurate. They're the true architects of suffering. So what is one type of tier 1 thief? Okay, just to give you the illustration, tier 3, 1 skull. Tier 2, they get 3 skulls. This is tier 1. They get all the skulls. There's just not enough room on the paper to outline the amount of suffering that these people create. Elected officials. So how do they steal from us? Well, they could coordinate contracts for their buddies. We're talking about, even at the city level, millions of dollars in contracts to their friends who maybe they do the work, but was that $1 million per mile road that you laid down, why did you get $3 million per mile? I understand that businesses have to make a profit, and the contracting world is hip to that game, and that's cool. I think that supports small business, business in your city. You have smaller contracting firms that do things like custodial work. You have maintenance on the roads. Maybe they don't lay down entire roads at a time. Maybe all they do is patchwork, right? Filling up potholes and stuff. So that supports small business, right? These small businesses, the people live in your community, the business owners live in your community. They have a contract with the city or the county or even the state. And they get paid and they reinvest their dollars. Typically, they're good actors, right? Most of us are good actors. It's just the bad ones are just so greedy that they have such a huge impact. Again, the impact is huge when they decide to act in a greedy nature or a malevolent nature. And what happens is now you don't have money to fund the schools. Now we're accusing the entire system of being full of fraud, waste, and abuse. Because, there you go. We've outlined it. But it's the very people that are saying fraud, waste, and abuse who are the abusers. Again, it's like being in a domestic violence relationship. the elected official continues to pretend like they did nothing wrong, or that they're our friend and they're there to fix it, when in reality they're the ones with their hands in our pocketbook, taking it through legitimate means, right? That's the other aspect of tier one criminals. Most of these are legitimized entities, and I'm talking even about the mafia and the cartels, because if you think about the mafia and the cartel, they have to be sanctioned by government, or else how would they get to operate, right? How would that entity grow so large and have such a huge impact if it wasn't in cooperation with the authorities? And that could work in a couple different ways, either through laws that are passed, right? Legitimized entities through laws like Citizens United, or through the corruption of government officials by the payoffs, or the favoritism employed through the contracting system. Oh, all these companies do the same work. Joe Schmo over there, he's going to do it for 10%, 8% less than you, but I'm going to give it to you because you're going to give me a kickback. Matter of fact, it's going to cost 20% more to go with you, but because of the kickback, you're going to get it anyway. And who loses? The taxpayer, the citizen, the constituency. And who gains? It's a handful of criminals, including that politician. So elected officials, they're sponsored conspirators manipulating policy to siphon wealth. Those are my words. I just kind of enjoy describing them in that way because it's so accurate. Nobody says shit like that. They just call them corrupt. Or you have citizens, half of the public, advocating for their candidate, their side. You know what? They're all swimming in the same cesspool. There's no such thing as a deep state. It's their state. They're doing the same thing. Just happen to be which side of the bad guys is winning. They're all bad guys. It's like two mafia families. Read between the lines there. And then let's outline another tier one criminal. So we talked about the elected officials, quote unquote elected officials or purchased officials. Let's talk about corporate thieves. Government sanctioned criminals engaging in wage theft, land grabs, and monopolization. Corporate thieves. We just had the fires here in Los Angeles. And even before that, I moved to Los Angeles in 2022. In 2022, when I was shopping around for insurance, I was surprised that certain big name insurance companies wouldn't give me a policy for my home because I bought a home here at that time. And I did my shopping around, so I finally found one of the big names. I'm not gonna fucking name it; they ain't worth it. And they gave me an insurance policy. Thought it was reasonable. The next year, when I went to renew the policy, they wouldn't insure me again. And they said, well, we stopped issuing policies in California, and we're not going to renew your policy. So I had to find a different company. And long story short, because of the structure of my dwelling, I had to go with a commercial insurance company, and my insurance rate went up like 3 times the rate. I'm not making that up. I think I'm lucky though. I'm almost positive that they're going to pay, but there's no certainty, because when they had the fires in Los Angeles, some insurance companies canceled their policies on their owners as their house was burning to the ground. If that is not criminal, then I don't know what is. That is government sanctioned corruption. Our government says that they can't do anything about this because they're operating within the legal bounds of the law. I understand about how the law works and that there should be rules, and if we find the gray areas and we operate there, how the law can get confusing. But it does have a spirit. There is such a thing as a spirit of the law. And why does it always benefit corporations? If you and I steal something and we get caught and we get prosecuted, we're going to go to jail. And the judge is going to say, well, you did this to yourself. There's some individual responsibility you must take. You need to serve a penance, and here you go. Here's probation, a fine, incarceration. People give up their lives literally for bullshit. And maybe they shouldn't have done the crime, but does the punishment for the crime? I think rarely it does anymore for the individual. But the corporation, however, they can get away with whatever they want. They can cancel your insurance policy in the time of crisis, in the time when it's actually needed. I purchased this insurance policy so that if my house burned down, I had some assurances. But exactly when that happens, you can't pay me. You can't help me. Okay, give me back my money then. Give me back all those monthly payments that I was giving you in insurance premiums, since you were never going to provide me the insurance in the first place. Like, there is no insurance. We could do the same thing with healthcare, but I would just be belaboring the point. It's insanity that our corrupted, purchased officials, supposedly elected officials, allow these things to happen to the citizen, and then they wonder why the citizen doesn't like them. I don't know what's going to happen in this country. We're not in a strange place. We're in a bad place. We can't agree on anything. The bad guys always make intellectual arguments that the public simply doesn't have the time to dissect, to determine whether or not what they're saying is true or false. I won't bring up any of the major ticket items. We'll stay on theft, but it's up to them to fix it. And the problem that their crimes are so detrimental to society, on its surface, on its face, tells you that something needs to change, and they won't. I don't know how we change the tide, but again, what do we do then? That's what I'm doing here. I'm saying, if they won't change anything, then we can change. We can stop stealing from each other. We can stop pillaging from each other instead of using their behavior as an excuse to give us license. Because remember, their behavior is supposed to guide society. The elected official is supposed to be the role model, the example citizen for the community to follow. And if they're criminals, if they're stealing, if they're trolling, if they're behaving in a cowardly manner, how is the citizen going to behave? That's the picture. They're painting the portrait of how we should behave. And if that's the portrait of how they behave, then of course you get a citizen that just follows suit. I think we should change that paradigm. I think since they don't want to operate in an honest manner, they don't want to inject integrity, honor, any type of loyalty or discipline into how they behave on the individual level and into political discourse, working as a team, as an entity on behalf of the citizen, whether you're talking about the executive, the legislative, or the judicial. If they want to be corrupt, I think we can choose not to participate in that corruption. We can choose to find a moral compass of our choosing, and it doesn't have to be religified. If it is, good. But we don't need to use our religion the same way that you use our political institutions to pit us against each other. We could use our religions to tie us and unite us together. And as a matter of fact, I think that's the mandate in each of those religions, whichever one you pick, to take care of our brother and sister, regardless of whether they bring the cross or the Star of David or the crescent moon or whatever the different symbology of religions are. Our faith can unite us. And it doesn't have to be, shrouded in some sort of mysterious being or entity. We can just say that there is a thing, an invisible force that guides us and unites us and brings us together to fight evil, to fight what, I say are lies. So let's talk about the 7 deadly sins real quick. I think it should be appended. They need to add lying to that list of the 7 deadly sins. It should be the 8 deadly sins, because we've seen lately that the lie is catastrophic. It's the whole problem with social media. You can't decipher what the truth is, and the truth is foundational to our individual and our societal functioning. You would not build a house without some sort of foundation. People make the argument, well, we built a house with no foundation. Shut the fuck up. That's, again, the troll, right? They're taking something out of context. If you want a building to endure, if you want a structure, a societal structure to endure, it has to have a good foundation. And it can't be built on lies. Lies are matchsticks, match our stilts. That's, anybody can set fire to that and bring the building down. It's not hard to do. There's a quality and quantity of itself. And it appears that if you build something on enough lies that it can endure. But tell that to Hitler, tell that to Stalin, tell that to the different communists that lied to their people and kept them in the dark. And then when it came time for the government to divide the labor and the riches and the spoils, when they didn't get their cut and they perished through starvation because the people at the top hoarded it all for themselves because they really didn't believe in that stuff. And it's just how our purchase officials and our corporations believe. They don't have any principles. Their guiding light is the dollar, and they're willing to lie. They'll do anything, including lie, especially lie and steal and cheat to get it out of our pockets. I don't see it different, and I would like for somebody to demonstrate to me the evidence that it is different. These people losing their jobs in mass, whatever your argument there, these people do not have even like the average. They're probably the average American. Think about that. The average American doesn't even have $400 in their savings account. They don't have the next month's rent. And typically, when you lose employment, I don't know how many people are going to find the same quality job at the same pay rate the very next day or the very next month. At a minimum, you're waiting 2 weeks to get 3 weeks to get the first paycheck. And is it even the same as your last one? Probably not. Losing a job is catastrophic financially for families. And what's going to happen? You're going to have a lot of foreclosures on homes. And who gets to buy the homes now? The people that already have the money. I don't think on the surface of it, it's any more naked to me than another grab of assets from the middle class. It's I think it's going to be catastrophic. The trajectory doesn't look good. How about that? You could look at the Dow Jones Industrial. You could look at the NASDAQ. You could look at any one of those barometers of economic progress and see the backward slide. It's not going to be different for the housing industry or any other industry. Who can buy a car now? Car notes is going to be one of those other things that gets sacrificed. Well, I got to pay the rent or I got to pay the car. Car is your second highest expense, probably. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's electricity now because electricity is so expensive. But anyway, moving on. So there are other types of crime, other types of thieves. You have lower level stuff like copyright exploitation. These things are more abstract, right? Copyright exploitation, bogus trademarks, defamation lawsuits, patent manipulation. So I'll take 1 minute to talk about the patent people. So these people go around buying patents. There's typically, not always, but typically a law firm, and they will sue mid-sized companies for patent infringement. With really it isn't, right? The patent that the lawyers own is so broad that they could argue in court that there's infringement. And if the court were to go to trial and be played out over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, however long that takes, the small company would win. At what expense, though? That type of litigation could cost somewhere in the millions of dollars. And so if you're a small to mid-sized company whose annual revenue, not profit, revenue, is somewhere between 500,000 to 5 million, you don't have money. You don't have a war chest to fight off these criminal professional litigators who use patent infringement as a guise to extract money for the company. And so what does the company do? They settle out of court. They settle out of court for 200, 500,000, $1 million. Something that looks more palatable than a $5 million law fee extended over 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's exploitation. They're exploiting. It's extortion. It really is the real crime there. But again, it's legitimized, right? So this is I would put they're put in tier 2 simply because they're not. Maybe they belong in tier 1. Maybe they do. Maybe I'll rethink that one. Well, that's pretty sick. But that's just theft, thieves. That's what we're talking about here. So the definition was supposed to be up front. Somehow ended up in my timeline further down. The definition of a person who steals other person's property, especially by stealth, without using force or violence. Blah blah blah. We got that. Let's just talk about some exceptions, and we'll sew this up. So the exceptions. Is it ever justified? You have this concept of mortal peril where I need to eat. I'm starving. Not only that, maybe my family's starving, or if I'm a big brother, maybe my little sister's starving. And I need to take care of them. I need to take care of my family or my little sister or whatever. And I still loaf of bread to feed her. Is that justified? Maybe, probably. It shouldn't be that hard, especially in the richest country in the world. I gotta steal something so that we can eat. Especially if I'm a good actor, right? Especially if I'm going to school, doing my homework. It's not always your fault what parents are born with. Yeah. So there's that. So you got, what's the intent behind the crime? Are we seeking justice? Does sometimes justice avail itself by stealing something? Well, if you stole something from me and I steal that thing back, maybe. If I use violence, maybe not. I don't know. I guess maybe I could agree with that too. I'm not sure. Maybe depends on what the thing is, right? If it's an iPad, maybe violence doesn't justify it. But if it's a vehicle or something that could impact your life, quality of life, maybe. And the last thing I'll mention there is, does necessity absolve guilt? Like, if I need the thing, am I really guilty? I don't know. Probably. It just depends. Again, it's situational. But 99% of the time, stealing is probably wrong. So there's the number, if you want to assign a number to it. All right, let's review. So the thief, right? You can start off as a benign, just a regular individual. You can find yourself in some sort of trouble. You end up addicted to something, or you're DUIing it, or you're just kind of an immoral person, or you're just a troll, just a fucking asshole for no good reason. And you find yourself in a situation and you're addicted to something. And now you need money to supply your habit because you lost your job, you lost your home, you lost your family, and now you're a thief. You have to resort to stealing to get your fix. You got low moral character, so you have low standards for yourself, and you see something out in the open that doesn't belong to you, and you go steal it. Again, you're an opportunist, right? Tier 3, you're just an opportunist, but you're still a thief. The fact that you don't get caught doesn't make it less criminal. It doesn't make it less immoral. It doesn't make it less indecent, and doesn't make you less of a piece of shit. Just to be perfectly honest, there's that. But there are levels to it. If you're the common thief and you just have kind of a broken soul somehow, for something happened to you as you came up when you were young, or nobody taught you better, you need to do some internal reformation in order to improve your life and to get on the right path, to assist your brothers and sisters and enduring this hard life in a better fashion. Then do that. Fix yourself. You're tier 2. You have hope. We all have hope for you. Nobody's beyond redemption. And I hate to sound judgy, but I guess that's exactly what I'm doing. We have to say it exactly how it is so that we can help you identify it and maybe decide to fix it, to change, to get better. Tier 1 criminals. I don't know if there's any reform in these fucks. I don't know if they need literal violence to reform their behavior. I don't think so. I think there's redemption for a lot of those people too. They say most crime tends to have a handful of leaders. The influencers, the real ones that influence the lower levels to to do something wrong. And so maybe reformation, maybe redemption availed itself to the vast majority of us, probably 99% of us. It was just that 1%, that the evil, the terrible, the ones that have decided that, you know, a life of ills is much better somehow. And if you want an example of that, world leaders, you have the Kim Jong Uns and the Vladimir Putins, and they have approval ratings. But of course, if you don't approve of them, then you might get killed if you live in their country. So there's a huge influence in order to, favor your beloved leader, whether you like it or not. So the approval ratings are a farce. It's another lie, right? That's why lying should be added to the list of deadly sins. There should be 8 deadly sins, with lying being right up there with pride. I appreciate you if you hung out this long. If you didn't, we're going to do a better job. We're going to keep improving this little show we have here. Next show, we're going to talk about white collar criminals. They're further up, even above the thief, because the thief, maybe again is a victim. Like, all these people are victims, including the white collar criminal, on this tiering system. But they simply have abandoned more of their character, more of their integrity, more of their morals. They have a much broader impact on society than the lowly thief. We'll talk to you later.